square kilometers with important infrastructure. So, this is a moment in which we need the world to act, not only, warn or support in words, but actual action in order to dismantle this structure. And that's what I believe it's going to take place as we move ahead.
And there's many more details I want to get into on the future of Venezuela and what you would like to see happen and what plans are being made. Let me just stick for a minute on your plans. When will you go back to Venezuela?
Well, we'll go back as soon as possible when I accomplish actions and objectives that I have in place right now. It means engaging with international actors directly, one-on-one, which I had not been able to do because, as you're aware, I had been banned from leaving Venezuela for over 12 years. And also because I believe there is a lot of organization that has to be done internationally. So I'm doing the job abroad, and as soon as I can, I will go back to a country in which many things are taking place as we speak.
Do you need America to facilitate that? Do you need American permission to go home to Venezuela?
Oh, no, not permission. But certainly I would say that we desire, we will have coordination.
And how will you know when you can return?
Well, as I said, many things are happening. There are a lot of things that I'm in the process of accomplishing. And when the right moment arrives, I will tell the Venezuelan people that it's time to go back home. And not only me. I have to say, Marie-Louise, that you are aware that thousands of Venezuelan political leaders have been forced to flee. They want to go home. And millions of Venezuelans, almost 9 million, are scattered all around the world and have a profound desire to go back home. And that will only take place. All those millions will only go back home when they're sure they have certainty that we're moving into a transition to democracy, because it's not only about economic recovery. It's basically about having trust that we will have democracy and freedom and opportunities for them and their children.
María Corina, I just want to ask the blunt question to allow you to respond. The state of play is that you are not in Venezuela. The U.S. is driving the agenda in your country right now. You're not there. You don't control the oil. You don't control the army. To those who wonder if you have been sidelined, what do you say? Have you been sidelined?
Well, I've heard that for years, because at the end, you usually get profound analysis and scenarios and formulas that have dozens of variables, but always leave one on the side, which is the most important of all, and that's the people. And we've come to this point because the people of Venezuela decided to be free and decided to risk everything in order to have a democratic country to which their children could come back.
But do you have any leverage from outside the country?
From outside and from inside. And from inside. I mean, I was in hiding during 16 months, and we never stopped working, organizing, and communicating. We have a network of citizens organized that were 1 million volunteers for the electoral process, and that have turned into an ordered underground real-time communication platform of individuals ready to act civically and moving ahead into a democratic transition, and to support this process as well.
So Chris Wright, the U.S. Energy Secretary, was in Venezuela this week. He is, I believe, the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit since Nicolas Maduro was ousted. He met Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president, at Miraflores, the presidential palace. There were photographs of them smiling and shaking hands and a big band playing. I just wonder what was going through your head as you watched that.
Well, just think where we were 5 weeks ago and where we are right now. everybody thought it was impossible to have Maduro faces international law, and where he is right now. So what's important to think is what Ms. Rodriguez is thinking right now after what they've said. They know, the world knows, they are part of a criminal structure. She's an essential part of the cartel. She was the one who was the architect and overlooked the torture system and the repressive structure. And she is the main link with Russia, Iran, Cuba, and so on. Everybody knows that. So we are in a process in which these the remains of the regime are following orders from the United States in a phase where they are being part of the dismantling of this regime. What we believe now is that we need to move forward into this transition once the rest of the repressive structure is further dismantled and weakened. And that's the direction in which we should move ahead now.
But I guess my question again, what is it like to be sitting outside Venezuela, watching the U.S. shaking hands and making deals and signing contracts with people who you just described as running a cartel and remnants of the regime? These are the same, Delcy Rodriguez and others, who were leading the country and crushed the will of the Venezuelan people in the presidential election of 2024.
We all know this is not sustainable. We all know this is a phase in which the restoration of institutions is just starting. As I said, it starts with the dismantling of the repressive structure, but in a country that currently is located in the last place worldwide in rule of law, the only way you can have long-term, massive investments, not only in oil and gas, but in all other sectors in which Venezuela has unique and huge potential, requires legitimacy in the institutions, required constitutional compliance, and certainly the support of the people. And what we are watching, and we have fought for this very long, is a process taking place and advancing at a pace that we certainly want to move ahead and to accelerate, and we're doing our part outside and inside.
So you mentioned oil and gas. Let's stay on that for a moment. The U.S. imposed order that seems to be emerging is oil, gas, business first, and then we'll deal with democracy and human rights and free speech and all the rest of it. Do you agree that that appears to be how things are taking shape? And B, is that the right order?
Well, we believe that many things have to be addressed simultaneously in Venezuela because of the degree of destruction and simultaneous crisis we have. We have a humanitarian crisis, we have economic crisis, we have a public service crisis, and certainly a security one. So all these issues need to be addressed simultaneously. The Secretary of State has been clear in saying that these phases can overlap, and that's part of the work we're doing right now to be sure.
But in terms of the sequencing, I'm sorry to jump in terms of the sequencing, you're okay with that it's the Energy Secretary who's the first senior U.S. official to set foot that we know of in Venezuela since last month?
Well, to be clear, the first actions that actually took place were the initial release of political prisoners, and that's taking place as we speak. 480 have been released so far. Still, there are over 800 in prison, but this is huge. And we're starting to see that the consequence of this release of political prisoners is a reaction from Venezuelan society, mobilizing, gathering, demanding in the streets, something that was unthinkable a month ago, unthinkable. So we are seeing certain progress. Of course, it's not enough. Of course, we want this to move further and more and accelerate it. And that's precisely our job right now. The Venezuelan people inside demanding for, civic rights to be totally restored, because at the end, you cannot talk about a transition if you have repression. And that's what we are demanding right now. And that's what we demand from the international community to support us at this stage.
Speaking of political prisoners, just this week, one of your closest political allies was arrested by heavily armed men wearing civilian clothes. He was held without anyone knowing his whereabouts. I'm talking about Juan Pablo Guanipa. He is now under house arrest, is my understanding. Is he okay? Do you know?
Actually, I spoke with Juan Pablo last night. As you say, you're right. He's one of our closest colleagues and friend. He had been detained for almost a year, and he was released last week. And the same day he was released, a couple of hours later, he was taken and disappeared again. He is in his house right now, but he's under house arrest. His house is surrounded by security personnel. But I want to highlight one thing, Maria Luisa. I've been speaking with dozens of Venezuelans that have been excarcerated in the last days and hours. If there's something that I'm, really impressed and moved, is the determination and will that they have when they go out. The first thing they do is that they call me in the car and they tell me, what do I have to do right now? And I tell them, you have to go home, you have to hug your mother, you have to take a bath. And then they say, no. What do I have to do regarding my work, regarding Venezuelan liberation? And this is a kind of strength and energy that cannot be stopped. Venezuela will be free because of its people.
Although, in fairness, going home and hugging your mother is always good advice at all times and for all of us. Where does all this leave Edmundo Gonzalez, who won the presidential election in 2024, is now in exile in Spain? Do the results of that election just go away and we start over, or what happens?
But absolutely not. On the contrary. I mean, what took place on July 28th, 2024, was the most important milestone in Venezuelan democratic history. I mean, this is extraordinary. We not only won by a landslide, but we proved the world that the will of the people and the military is to move ahead into a transition to democracy. And I want to insist this here. I mean, in Venezuela, the electoral process is overlooked and protected by military. And that day, they were ordered to stop us from getting the tally sheets, and they disobeyed. So this is a proof that the wide majority of the armed forces and the police support us. Edmundo Gonzalez is the legitimate elect president, and precisely what gives legitimacy to what took place starting in January and what will happen in a transitional process and a transitional government that eventually will have general elections is because the people spoke and popular sovereignty was expressed.
You said eventually general elections. You created a little bit of a stir when you made comments, I think a week or two ago, giving some kind of timeline for when elections would happen in Venezuela, and the White House jumped in and said, not that, not so fast, we'll let you know. What is the timeline for general elections in